and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gillespie, was the meeting properly posted?
It was.
Thank you. This is a regular meeting of the School District of Menominee Falls Board of Education. It is being held in the Village Hall Boardroom at West 156, North 8480 Pilgrim Road, Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. The broadcast is being televised on Time Warner Spectrum Cable Channel 25. To watch the recorded meeting, please visit our website at www.fallsschools.org/board and click on Watch Live or view archived meetings. Mr. Gillespie, can you do the roll call attendance, please?
Board President Grant.
Here.
Board Member Wren.
Here.
Board Member Wofford.
Here.
Board Member Langer.
Here.
Board Member Schmaling.
Here.
Board Member Kramer.
Here.
Board Member Holzman.
Here. Okay, I need a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Board Member Langer.
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Wren. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Are there any additional public comment forms? This is the last point at which they will be collected. Okay, it looks like we have one.
Finishing filling it out right now.
One more. We can accept that one, but we'll move forward. Thank you. All right. So this evening, we have three very special guests for the finance. Mr. Munoz, I'll turn it over to you.
Yep, we're going to call up the middle school administration, and they have a presentation for us, and then we'll follow up with awards after that.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing this evening?
Good.
All right, great. I'm Kristen Higgins, the proud principal of North Middle School. And this evening, I am proud to introduce three of Fall's finest. With me tonight, I have Madison, a little way, Nora, and behind Nora is Anna. And I also am proud to introduce Associate Principal Mr. Tony Logie as well. So I'm not going to do the talking this evening. I'm going to turn it over to our three Falls finest, as well as Mr. Logie, who has spent a great time and effort into developing a positive vibe, a positive culture throughout our building this year, and really putting an emphasis on recognizing the great things that our students do. So tonight, these young ladies are going to explain a little bit about why they're here. And Mr. Logie, would you like to hop up and say a few things before we turn it over to the girls?
And yes, we are very proud of them. The work they do is instrumental in building, keeping our culture going, as you see from the presentation. As we sat and talked a little bit about it, there's a lot of kids we could have picked as well, but our overarching theme is, if you wouldn't mind scrolling please, a place where our voices are heard and our actions are appreciated. So instead of me giving a big dissertation about that, we'll let the kids show you what that actually means. Okay.
Hi, so I'm Madison Spence. I'm an 8th grade student, and I entered a poetry competition, and my book got published. And behind the poem, I wrote the poem because I was kind of seeing it myself, and I was hearing it from my friends, and I felt like that poem really connected with people. I wrote the poem because I felt like I wanted to express something that some people don't always say like out loud, or that some people struggle with. My inspiration was just like not only seeing it in middle school, but also seeing it in the people that I surround myself with, like my friends that do go to school with me and other people that I like know and associate myself with. For the future, I plan to enter so many more poetry competitions and to keep writing poetry because I feel like I'm really passionate about it and I really enjoy writing stuff down, especially if I can express things that other people can't really say.
Next up, excuse me, Anna will talk to you a little bit about what Star Council is.
Good evening. My name is Anna Hansen, and I'm the current president of Star Council at North Middle School. Star Council was by the students for the students. Last school year, a group of 8th grade students decided that they wanted to see a change in the school for the better. They wanted more kids' voices to be heard, and they wanted to make it a positive environment for all students. Because of this, they approached Mr. Logie and asked to start Star Council, which is essentially a student council, but a bit different. As Star Council members, we represent all 800 students at North Middle School. We represent what they want. We represent who they are. Our actions are seen by many, and we know that anything that we do is reflected on our school and on our fellow students and peers. We also know that all of our actions affect them. We plan assemblies for the school. Assemblies are a school-wide event that not only concern the students, but the staff as well. They change the flow of class procedures and are brought to make a light for everyone in the school to create a fun, positive environment. We really wanted to get staff more involved with them to bring a closer connection between the staff and the students, and we were able to do this. We also planned dress-up weeks. Dress-up weeks is essentially just a week where every single day has a different theme, and in this theme, we encourage both students and staff to participate by creating a sort of point system. This point system tracked not who participated, but how many students participated. At the end of the year, there's an award for which grade gets the most points and the most participation. There's a lot of thought that goes behind the point system. It's not just based off, like let's say there was 300 students in 7th grade, but only 200 in 6th grade. 7th grade won't automatically win because they have more students. It was thought out so the number of students actually has like a certain percentage marking in certain classes and grades. We also encourage staff to participate in dress-up weeks by giving them points as well. When they dress up, participate in assemblies, etc., they get points for their grades or a grade of their choosing. Star Council, however, is more than just dress-up weeks, and it's more than just assemblies as well. We have a lot of plans for the future and plans that we've already commenced. As I said earlier, North Middle School is a place where students' voices are heard. We're doing this in many ways and plan to do it more in the future, including going on announcements every single morning and announcing student accomplishments in both athletics and then also with the Rising Stars program, which we'll talk about later on in the evening. We have a lot more plans as well to recognize students in the school. It's more than just planning games, it's about the students. Thank you for listening.
Next up, we have Nora, who's going to talk about NJS, which is new this year. So this and the next one are both new.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Nora Jin, and I'm the current Vice President of Star Council, as well as the President of National Juniors Honor Society, also known as NJHS. I'm here to share how North Middle School makes sure that every student's voices are heard and their actions are appreciated, and how that's been specifically clear through our first year of NJHS at North. This year is the first time that NJHS has a chapter in North, and even though we're new, we already created several service projects and activities that came directly from the students. The process to join NJHS was the first sign of how our school believes students are capable of leadership. We completed an application and reflected in how we demonstrate scholarship, leadership, citizenship, character, and service. And teachers reviewed our involvement in the school community, and it showed that being a part of NJHS isn't just a label, it's also a responsibility.
To welcome our new members, we held a candlelighting ceremony, as is shown on the screen, and it symbolized how each of us can bring light into our school through the ways we act and the choices we make. It was a reminder that leadership is something we practice every day, not just something we talk about. What has made NJHS special this year is how student-led it is. We ran our own meetings, shared ideas, and voted on what we want to work on this year. Our main service project so far, the Kindness Week, was designed completely by students. We discussed what our school needed and how we could support both student and staff, and how to make the biggest impact. Every activity was created by us and focused on making North a more positive and welcoming place. We want our students to participate, smile, and get involved, because it proved that our ideas would genuinely change the atmosphere of the school. We also organized a fundraiser, a bake sale, which is running this week, to support our future service projects. Students will bake, package items, hand at the table, and manage money. This event teaches us responsibility, teamwork, and how much effort will go into a small event. Through all of this, I've learned that leadership doesn't mean being in charge of everything. It means speaking up, listening to others, and creating something better together. And JHS gave us a place to do that. But North Middle School made it possible by trusting us with real responsibility and valuing what we contribute. So when we talk about what makes our school strong, it's not just the programs we offer, it's the way North truly listens to students and appreciates the actions we take to support our community. And JHS has shown me when students are encouraged to use their voice and take initiative, we rise to the challenge. Our voices are heard, our actions are appreciated, and that's what makes North a great place to learn and lead. Thank you for your time.
I'll tie it together, girls, okay? All right. So the last thing we have on there is a Rising Stars, which is basically recognizing students that are being safe, being team players, being accountable, and being responsible for actions. So if you walk into the middle school, when you take the first left, you'll see a wall that's up there. I know you really can't see it on there, but you'll see a bunch of stars on there. We have over almost close to 200 of our 800 students are on there already. And they do the readings every day of the kids. We do that every day in the morning, but they're instrumental also in like announcing it and then modeling it and doing it throughout the course of the day. So it all ties back together into building the culture and the amount of work that they put in addition. They're also they're all-star council too. So they put in a ton of work, and meetings are not nearly as organized as these are. You agree with that, ladies? but they get a lot done, they learn a lot. So we're proud of them and everything they do. And all the kids.
Why don't we open it up to questions? I know some board members sometimes have questions of the students. Are there any questions?
I have a question. What grades are you all in?
Why don't you go up?
We're,
Why don't you go up?
we're all in 8th grade.
Okay, so incoming freshmen, so it shows. So hopefully you're passing the baton to the class after you so that they can pick up what overall momentum you guys are showing. So thank you for your leadership.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you. I really appreciated hearing from each of you. And this is inspiring and really a great representation. I always like to say how the truth is in our youth. So thank you. I love it.
Let's give a big round of applause.
Now we'll move on to the reports. First would be if any Board of Education members have anything they'd like to report.
I do have a report this evening. I actually have taken some notes here because I wanted to make sure that I have stated everything that I wanted to say. I wanted to address the members of Menominee Falls School District, students and staff. Serving on the Menominee Falls School Board has been an honor and a responsibility that I've never taken lightly. I am deeply grateful to the community to trust me in this position and the opportunity to work alongside dedicated educators, administrators, fellow board members, families, and students like the ones that we heard from tonight. After thoughtful consideration, I have decided to not seek re-election at this time due to personal matters that require my full attention. This was not an easy decision to make, as my commitment to public education and Menominee Falls School District remains strong. I am proud of the work I've done during my time on the board and the progress we made through collaboration, thoughtful decision, and the shared focus we have on our students. While my role on the board may be coming to a close, as a parent of students in the district, I remain personally invested in the success and well-being in the future of our schools. I'm grateful for the dialogue, shared decision-making, and dedication to doing what's best for all of our students. I look forward to supporting the district in new ways, remaining involved in the community, and while I cannot predict what my future will hold, my interest in public service and the community remains strong. So I wanted to say thank you to everyone for the opportunity I've had to serve for the last 3 years on the school board, and the ongoing commitment to our students and community. And I look around here and I see just a full room of passionate people interested and invested in our district, which I'm really proud to be a part of. So thank you again for this opportunity and the upcoming commitment to the school district as we look forward to elections in April. So thank you everyone for your support.
I have something as well. Sarah, thank you again for your service. I do greatly appreciate it, and you've served and done a lot of wonderful things in your tenure. So we will miss you very much.
I just wanted to share that I was able to attend the high school boys basketball game last Tuesday. I won't give any spoilers because I'm sure the student reps will do that. But what I did want to share was that I was able to connect with the professionals at the Mental Health Resource Fair. It was just such a wonderful to see families engaging with the fair's age-appropriate resources for children, teens, and adults. And so basically when you walked in, there was just a whole bunch of tables with resources. And it was a pleasant surprise. I thought I was just gonna watch basketball. But what I really want to just bring forth, and that I was reminded while I walked around, was about the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Just a reminder, or let everybody know that it's available 24/7 by call or text. The number is 988, and you are connected with a trained counselor when you need support. I hope this fair can return, and thank you to the staff who made it possible. Any other board members? Okay. Well, then we're going to move on to superintendent report.
I cited several items. I will start with Falls Cable Access, actually. That's not on my sheet, but I think it's important to bring it up. Thank you to our Falls Cable Access partners. Today's the first day that they're taking over live streaming. So they're involved in the community quite a bit, all over. They do an outstanding job, so thank you very much, Chris, and your team. So tonight is a transitional night for Falls Cable Access. So as we transition from the village equipment to the Falls Cable Access equipment, much of what you can see here, tonight's meeting will be live streamed using the link on the School District of Menominee Falls Board meeting webpage through the Falls Cable Access YouTube page. A live link is on the right-hand side of the page under January 12th. Starting in February, Falls Cable Access will be able to live stream to the Menominee Falls School District YouTube page directly. So this is a transitional month. So thank you again for that understanding. We're excited for this change in the new year. So next thing, there was a detailed article that was done. It's a state article from a friend of mine, and the article was Understanding School Funding, Property Taxes, and the Facts Behind the Headlines. And it was an excellent article because it lays out many of the different topics that will come up tonight. And at least one of the topics, and then one of my points about the DO construction pictures and progress. So I think the article is worth reading. It's out in the state news. The superintendent there in that particular district used to be a principal in this area, in the Fort Washington area, but he's been up north since then. It was an extremely well-written article. He hits on all the fine points. I'll generally summarize in just a couple of seconds. There's several pictures in there from our Peers to Peers group at the high school, organized to be the majority event for Menominee Falls High School, the Sussex basketball game. It's a really great event, so a lot of stuff was in there about that. Congratulations to Mr. DeBauer on having his application forwarded to the past the regional screening to state screening for the Herb Cole Foundation Award. So that's new news, so just out. So I, along with several staff members, I was honored to write a recommendation for Mr. Bauer for this well-deserved recognition. He hasn't won yet, but he's a finalist for these awards. So also congratulations to the high school for improving from bronze to silver as it relates to the AP honor roll. So that's outstanding work. That takes years of work behind the scenes. So outstanding work, high school team. And the last thing, I'm just going to read off a couple of prepared notes about the DO construction project. Took a bunch of pictures just after the committee meeting. That's going to be largely part of discussion and then action later in this meeting. So all of those pictures talk about the different phases, and there's been quite a bit of work over at Ben Franklin in that section, and conversations with Mr. Gofford, including that day. So some of the changes and recommendations that will be coming forward today are a result of, some of that information, but also the following, is that the school district of Menominee Falls continues to be on solid financial foundation. We are now, we will be later today, we will be tomorrow. You will hear an audit report later in the meeting that's going to say all of those things as well from an external auditor, which is required. So that's part of this meeting as well. So we're on solid financial footing now. We'll be solid financial footing later tonight, and then going on the rest of the school year. And into next year, of course. My recommendations that will come up later in this meeting about the DO project are meant to ensure that we continue to have a solid financial footing. Just to make sure, being cautious with, and why do we have to be cautious? There's three main reasons, right? 3 reasons why we have to be cautious. 1, districts can only raise revenue within state set limits. I think that's pretty common knowledge. The state authorized a per pupil increase below inflation and did not provide the aid to support it, shifting costs to property taxpayers. This has never happened before. Right, I'll say it one more time. The state authorized a per pupil increase, so we had an increase below inflation and to all districts in the state, and did not provide the aid to support it, not just to us, but to all districts in the state, shifting costs to property taxpayers. This has never happened before. So that's one main reason. Second, special education funding promised at 45% will now be 35%. We're aware of the system the state runs, so I'm going to read this so it's extremely clear. The state operates a system where if the money runs out that is intended for public school special education needs, then they course correct and reduce that which all public schools receive on a percentage basis. All school districts, including the SDMF, are used to this, but this year's drop was much larger than the promised to actual received ratio. Okay? So that's the second reason. The third, in addition to the state eliminating revenue for personal property aid that districts previously received as recently as last year. For our school district, that was $800,000 in a reduction. So, that all being said, we're on solid financial footing right now. We'll be at solid financial footing after the meeting, and we'll be on solid financial footing through the biennium, for sure. So all of these things are just meant to give context and information. Now, this will come up again as we get into the, the DO project and my recommendations. But I think it was important to clarify those points. Now, the article that I was referencing, the first part of my report, is it's a great article. He lays down these facts and myths and all these sorts of things. Really, I looked at that and said, okay, what exactly is this about? Well, our business department, Mrs. Windler, who's here, has got an outstanding job. She does an amazing job. She's very gifted, and she has a gifted team. So that's one of the big reasons why we're in such a good financial situation. The auditor is going to express that. That'll come forward when the auditor does the presentation. Sorry to break the news ahead of the presentation. So I just wanted to be clear about those points. There was one thing that's never happened before, right? Never happened before at all. So that's major thing. Special education funding. There's never been a dip that far. They always do this. We're aware of the system where they say they're going to give this, but then it's actually lower. That's actually understood, but it should be by all districts. That's the way they operate. I'm not making any judgments about that, but we're aware of it. It's this year the drop was much larger. And the personal property aid, that was out of left field. And that was for everybody. So all these three issues, every public school in the state of Wisconsin, right? We happen to be in a better financial situation, quite honestly, because of Mrs. Winkler. And the operations of this board and previous boards putting us in this solid financial situation. All right, so questions?
Thank you very much. Appear to be any questions, so we'll move on to the student board members. Ladies?
Good evening, guys. Finals are quickly approaching, and students and staff are working very hard to prepare. I want to give a special shout out to our staff. They have provided exam planners, put time aside for one-on-one attention in smaller groups called our Phoenix Times. They have set aside review days, and our FBOA is even offering exam cram goodie bags with all proceeds going to the club. Speaking of clubs, we have a new club called Path Club, which is a student-run club to help students find volunteer opportunities and allow us to explore career paths to prepare for life after high school. And like Mr. Mills previously mentioned, last week students from all grade levels were recognized and celebrated for our recent efforts and significant improvements. Our pre-ACT scores have improved with a 1 point growth in the past 2 years. The new average is a 22. Report cards and attendance have gone up, and our AP test scores have moved from bronze to silver, and then there are more students overall taking the ACT or the AP test, and then post-secondary pass support while here at high school have been great impacts.
Awesome.
All right, so the ski team for JV boys, their red team, they placed first at their competition. And then JV gray boys, the varsity girls team, the varsity boys team, and the JV girls team, they all took second place at their competition. And for hockey, the Brookfield Co-op, they won on January 9th at 2-1 versus Arrowhead in a very thrilling game. And the Brookfield Glaciers Co-op team, they won 3-2 versus the Badger Lightning game on January 9th as well. Going along for that basketball game with the Peers for Peers be the majority, the Falls beat Sussex 70-55. And for the girls team, unfortunately over the weekend they lost to Germantown High School. For girls wrestling at the Lancer Invite over the weekend, Izzy Evich, a senior, took third place for girls, and freshman Molia Himido placed first place and won her third tournament of the year. For boys swim, right before break, they went to the Marquette Invite and placed 6 out of 30 teams, and their dual co-op record is 3-1 for the year. This weekend, the dance team is going to be hosting their annual Falls Dance Invite, which hosts elementary teams all the way up to high school teams. And finally, for cheer, the JV cheer team placed second on Saturday for the WACP state competition, which is one of their highest, finishing in a couple of the years. And then at varsity, we have 2 competitions before we leave for nationals at the ESPN Center in Orlando on January 27th.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to be moving on to our discussion items. If you need to leave for activities and things, you certainly do so now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, our first discussion item is the final 2024-2025 audit report. And it looks like we have some ladies here to give the presentation.
We sure do. Good evening. This is our, as President Grant said, 24-25 audit report. We generally do this at our board finance committee in either January or February. Our schedules didn't align with Ms. Unger, so we asked, rather than waiting until spring, if she was available tonight, and she was. So I'm proud to introduce Ms. Wendy Unger. She is our lead auditor. She's also a CPA and partner with Baker Tilly. So with that,
well, good evening, everyone. What you should have in front of you is hopefully 2 bound documents. One is your audited financial statements, and then one with more of a solid green cover is referred to as the reporting and insights document. We do have up on the screen a presentation that summarizes both of those documents at a relatively high level. So we will go through some high-level audit results. We'll go through some summary financial information. I have a couple additional points that I've included in the presentation, which I think is important for you to be aware of. And then I will open it up for questions at the end of the presentation. If you do have questions as I move through, please feel free to ask. I'll do my best to address those as we go through. So on the next slide, the audit results. So as I noted, as part of the audit process, we issued those 2 documents. Included in your audited financial statements is our audit opinion. So the objective of the audit is for us to express an opinion on the financial statements, the data that's included within that document. We've included a clean, unmodified opinion. So that's the highest level of assurance that you can obtain from us as your auditors. That unmodified opinion means that the financial statements are believed to be materially accurate, that we followed generally accepted accounting principles, that all the disclosures that are required to be included under the standards have been included within your financial statements. I have added an additional bullet point here that talks about the adoption of GASB 100. So good or bad, there's never a year that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board doesn't implement or require implementation of a new standard. Those are standards that we have to follow, and unfortunately governments have to implement as appropriate. Very simply, GASB 100 just changed some disclosures that are required in the footnote for changes in how funds of the district are presented. And I will highlight that when I get a little bit further back in the presentation, but that's really what that means. We are required to bring that to the reader's attention, so we include that as an emphasis of matters paragraph in the audit opinion. On the next slide, before we get into financial information, I mentioned that we issue a report referred to as the reporting and insights document. That document really accomplishes a couple different purposes for us. We use that document to communicate any comments or recommendations that we may have as part of the audit process. We are required to put in that document in writing any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that are included. We also include in that document some resources for the board, some links to some more thought-provocative type topics. So just to quickly highlight that document, there is a material weakness section in there, and just to clarify, in the slides that are up on the screen, I've included the page numbers of the document where those items are highlighted. This is something I've done for the Finance Committee, so hopefully the board will find that useful. You can look at these at your convenience. But included in that document, there is one material weakness that we do highlight. This is not something that is new or different to the district, but because we prepare the audited financial statements, we prepare the actual document, we become part of the internal control structure of the district for a brief period of time. That is referred to as a material weakness in internal controls, and we are required to include that within that document. So that point is in there. Again, not new or different, nor is it uncommon for most governmental entities to have that type of weakness, only because the cost benefit of eliminating that is not typically there. So ultimately that gets included. A couple other just highlights in there. We do include another comment and recommendation, and this is just something that came up as part of the audit process, asking management to take a look at accounts within the general ledger that haven't had any changes in the past year or so. I'm just looking at them and resolving their balance in either eliminating or adjusting as needed. We do include some required communications. As I noted, there's a section in there that highlights things that we need to communicate with the board and management. Nothing unusual or unexpected in there. I would say probably the most interesting portion of that section is the highlights of the estimates that are included within the district's financial statements, which there are numerous. And when you think of those are OPEBs, your pension liabilities, your depreciation that's calculated on your property, plant, and equipment. So we are required to highlight that. But other than that, that document is very normal and customary and does not require me to draw your attention to anything else. One other item I will just note, the last bullet point there, the district is required to have what is referred to as a uniform guidance audit or a single audit. That is an audit that is required by the federal government when you expend over $750,000 in federal money. The district for FY25 spent $2.8 million of federal funds. And then on an annual basis, we rotate programs that are required to be tested based on dollar thresholds. So for FY25, we tested the Medicaid cluster and also the special education cluster. Very happy to say no compliance findings were noted in either of those programs. Also, the district does expend, or receives, I should say, almost $20 million in state funds. And Department of Public Instruction does have programs that we are required to test on the state side. That is the general aid cluster that we tested for 25. And again, very happy to say no compliance finding. But that single audit portion of your financial statements begins in the back portion of your audited statements. Moving through, now shifting gears and looking at some very high-level financial information. Just going to highlight a few points here. The general fund that I've presented on this slide highlights the actual to budget activity for the general fund for FY25. When you look at the revenue row, you'll note that you had the district had $57 million of actual revenue compared to a $55 million budget. So you were over budget in revenue by $1.7 million. Very favorable. Couple larger reasons for that. FY25 was a very good market year, so your investment income came in $350,000 more than what you budgeted, so very positive there. Also, your federal funding had the remaining portions of ESSER monies that came in. That was about approximately $680,000. So those are the two larger pieces of that positive variance. On the expenditure side, you budgeted $59 million of you spent $59 million of actual. You budgeted $58.4. You were over budget in your expense area, and that is an unfavorable variance. But really, I would say the largest contributing factor to that is the roof project. There was a roof project that happened in FY25 that I believe was anticipated for 26, and that was $682,000. So overall, the district budgeted, that second column, budgeted to use almost $3 million of fund balance during 25. You actually used 1.8, almost 1.9 million. So you had a positive variance to budget of a little bit over $1 million. So a very favorable end result. The district ended the year at 20 million of general fund balance. As you can see on the slide, that is broken out into 4 components. There's $224,000, which is referred to as non-spendable. So these are monies that have been spent but haven't been recognized as an expense because they're for a subsequent year. So, for example, inventory. You have inventory on hand, it sits on your balance sheet, doesn't move to the fund balance until you actually use it. Likewise, prepaid. You prepay insurance. That's paid in December, but it's a January expense. So $224,000 we pull out because that's cash you don't have. The restricted portion, $164,000, this is carryover grant money. So this is restricted for the purposes of those grants. You have almost $7.6 million of assigned fund balance, and this relates to various capital needs, relates to your self-funded health insurance, and then some school carryovers to FY26. The remaining portion, that $12.2 million, your unassigned fund balance, that's your working capital, your contingency money that you have on hand for unforeseen expenses. That represents roughly 20% of your operating budget. That is a very solid position. We typically look for that to be somewhere between 10 and 25%. So you're on the higher end of that, and that's very positive. I mean, it affords you some flexibility with not having to borrow in certain circumstances in that type of scenario. On the next slide are the...
Can I just jump in with one comment about the over budget piece? For the board and for all present, that had to do with carryover. You mentioned the project, the roofing project.
Correct.
So those were decisions that the board made to put the roof on in the next year.
Correct.
And once we have a functioning Fund 43, which we don't yet, then that will not be an issue, correct?
Correct.
All right, so I was wondering if you could explain that to the board. We've done Fund 43. Like
46.
46, Fund 46. So Fund 46, the functioning Fund 46, so we've made those decisions, we have a Fund 46, but we can't use it yet.
Correct. So Fund 46 is a fund created by DPI that you can start to save money in, but you have to develop a capital plan and you have to have the money sit in that fund for a period of 5 years.
Yeah, we've not hit that 5-year window yet.
Correct.
But once we do, there won't be a need for this.
Because you will pay those expenses out of 46 versus
Right.
10.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, on the next slide, and I'm going to apologize, that first column which says special education, the $5.7 million is actually the transfer that went into that fund. The special education fund had revenues of $9.3 million and expenses of $9.3 million. 5.7 of that $9.3 million comes from your general fund. So whatever the shortfall is in your special education fund, that will be funded by your general fund, or has been funded by the general fund, and that portion was $5.7 million. The special education fund has zero fund balance, which is a requirement by DPI. It cannot carry resources over to subsequent years. The next column is your community service fund. So this is your fund, $87.8 million of revenue. Most of that, roughly $6 million, is taxes. You spent $4.5 million on program expenses, added $3.3 million to fund balance, and ended the year at $4.6. Those monies are committed. You have purposes for which those monies have been derived, and those are committed for that purpose. The next column is your debt service fund. Had $274,000 of revenue, $522,000 of expenses. Now, this activity in your debt service fund, this is where you make your principal and interest payments on debt. During FY25, the only expenditure that was incurred was interest on the long-term obligations. That was the $522,000. You used a little bit of fund balance and ended the year at slightly over $1 million. In FY26, included in your footnotes, shows the payment schedule that will start, and you will start to pay principal and interest effective for FY26, and I believe that goes through 2033 if I recall correctly. On the last column here, this is really an accumulation of the remaining funds of the district, and you can see those a bit detailed out in that table below. This is your food service fund, this is your capital project fund, this is your gift trust fund, or your Fund 21, your food service fund, and then your capital improvement trust fund, which is that fund we talked about, which is Fund 46. So as you can see, those funds collectively had $2.8 million of revenue. Most of that came in from your food service program, which was $1.7 million, and then $1.1 million came in as donations to your gift fund. Those funds in total spent $2.9 million, again, as you would expect, mainly in the food service and the gift fund. Had a small decrease in fund balance and ended the year at $967,000. And again, you can see the breakdown down below of what that fund balance is made up of. On the next page and the last page of information, just want to highlight these 5 bullets very quickly. The district has the ability to borrow 10% of its equalized value. That equates to $612 million. As of the end of FY25, the district had almost $18 million of debt outstanding. So the $612 million less $18 million is your capacity to borrow. So a very large ability to borrow if the district needed to do so. The accounting change, the second bullet, this is the GASB 100 change, and I would just draw your attention to that footnote if you want to see what funds change from major to non-major. You have a footnote disclosure regarding your other post-employment benefits. This is the benefit that no longer exists, but you still carry money in your trust. So the trust fund has roughly $2.9 million, and that there is a footnote that highlights that fact. And ultimately, the district needs to determine how to utilize those funds. The next item is your pension plan. So this is your stipend plan. That liability, as of the end of the year, grew slightly, up to $7.6 million, up about $28,000. And then employee retirement system. This is the district's participation in WRS. That was a liability at the end of the year of $2.6 million, and that was an increase of $167,000. Those last 2 bullets are all based on actuarial information that is provided to us and studies that are done for the district. Again, those footnotes are extensive and have a lot of information regarding both of those programs. And then lastly, on the last slide, I've included my direct line, my email address. I go through this very high level and very quickly. I'm happy to talk with any of you in more detail if you so choose, so please feel free to contact me. But if you do have any questions, I do my best to answer them now. Sorry.
I just have one question about you led with a finding about accounts that had no activity and cleaning them up. Is that what you just kind of went over there with the remaining pension fund, or are there other? Is those 2 separate things?
2 separate things. So the point that I started with is really relating to when we look at the activity of the district, we look at it starting with in comparison to the prior year. So we look for accounts on your balance sheet that may not have had any change. So we're really just saying, take a look at them. If they're not needed, get rid of them. Some of them are probably just residuals from prior years. Nothing of material nature. There's nothing significant. Just doing some file cleanup. Yep.
I mean, is there like a quick example or anything? Or is it really small?
Oh gosh. Like from the health insurance accounts, I want to say.
Sure, yeah. There are, so we've got payroll liabilities. There might just be, I don't have specific examples off the top of my head, but where, so these are on the balance sheet. So where there's no revenue expense that is impacting those, where they're fluctuating. So it's just a stagnant, no change from last year. I don't have any other good examples off the top of my head.
No, and I can provide that. I mean, if that would be helpful.
I was just curious.
Yeah, it's just kind of just recommending some cleanup.
Who's the actuarial firm?
So we use Hildy, and they are now, oh gosh, they're not Hildy anymore. They have a new name. No.
I'll look it up. What, Hildy? I've never heard of Hildy earlier.
Hildi. I was just emailing. I could tell you the name of the person.
Any other questions for our presenters? Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, our next discussion item is the district office relocation update. Mr. Moon?
Yep, we have several, BGS, EUA, obviously Caitlin, and then myself. But a general overview, and I kind of mentioned it in my notes starting this, so I'll restate that and summarize a little bit, that the recommendation that I'll be bringing forward in action is to reduce the project to not to exceed 2.5 million. And the why of that recommendation later in action, and then we'll get into the details of things here in an overview. We already went through all of this in detail in committee. So all committee members, and I think actually a good number of board members were at that meeting. So this is very similar, if not very similar information to what you saw at committee. But my recommendations stem from a desire, like I had mentioned, to ensure that we stay financially stable, because we are now, we will be tomorrow, we will be for the rest of this biennium. So my recommendations have to do with that to the board. This is doable. We've looked at it, all the pictures in my notes that I provided to the board, actual on-site pictures. We're showing you when I referenced at committee, which is a recorded meeting for those that go back and look at it, that the project is really already started because asbestos abatement was completed over break when nobody was there. So that project is already started. And as you can see from all those pictures, you know, we're already moving with that project. So the reduction of this project, while it's not ideal, the three reasons that there was no control here. There was no district. It's not the board or the previous board, or it's not Caitlin, it's not me. It has to do with three very specific things that all happened after the annual meeting. All happened after the annual meeting. So every district in the state is dealing with this. They're just dealing with it in different ways, right? So just to reiterate, the three different things are the state authorized a per pupil increase but did not provide the aid to support it. That's one. Second, the special education decrease from 45 to 35 was much larger than anybody could have budgeted for. And we budgeted very conservatively. Other districts did not. They're in a more difficult situation. The biggest piece, $800,000 approximately, the state eliminated revenue from personal property aid that the districts previously received last year. Those three reasons, very specific. So those things didn't exist at the annual meeting. It happened since then. So I do appreciate everybody's work here, EUA, VJS, you know, Caitlin and others that were working over break to kind of get to my not to exceed number. Why 1.5 million? That's what those three things adds up to. Is $1.5 million in difference from the annual meeting to now. So we're going to backfill that, and then hopefully the state or whomever figures things out going forward. But like I said, we're in solid financial footing now. We will be later today. We will be for the rest of the biennium. I just want to really make sure that I'm cautious with, you know, any sort of spending. So these three things happening led me to this recommendation. Okay? I'm going to turn things over to Caitlin, DJS and EUA at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Munoz.
Oh, and Building Solutions. Sorry about that.
Very important. So I'll have our partners introduce themselves. They also attended our board finance committee on the 6th, I believe it was. So our partners will introduce themselves, and then I'll go through kind of the different activities that we bring us here tonight. So Building Solutions, EUA, and VJS.
Good evening, Kurt Webelos, Building Solutions. Good to see the group again.
Hi there, Teresa Wadzinski with EUA.
Chris Coggins with VJS Construction.
So when we met over break to discuss what this could look like, and actually I think it was even before that, as we were learning these new factors from the state, we essentially started with, could we scale this back? And we looked at the ways in which, with our partners, how could we scale this project back to reduce our total cost? So we went through this activity, and we did let's say there's no lights in the parking lot, and let's say we aren't redoing the floor in the hallways, and these kind of things, which added up to a project of approximately $3 million, which was, significant, but not where we wanted to be, and also not ideal, because we're looking for a long-term district office plan, and there were things in that plan that wouldn't be done if we were scaling it back by a quarter of the whole project. So our next step then was essentially square footage. And so with that, I'll turn it over to, I think, starting with Teresa, Ms. Wazinski, to take a look at what our new phase construction plan will look like.
Yeah, good to see you all again. I'm trying to remember the last time I was here presenting this project. Fundamentally, the project that we talked about, if that was in October or September, trying to remember, is the same at its completion. But as Caitlin said, there wasn't a way to slice and dice and reduce the scope and still have a functioning, 30-year district office solution. And so we are looking at phasing. So there's two floor plans in front of you. Essentially, what we're looking at is a phase 1 and a phase 2. And phase 2 is largely the exact same project you saw back in September. So the portion of phase 1 is essentially all of the exterior improvements, making sure that people know this is the district office and it is the new face of your district. There were some things that we scaled back on as far as canopy size. We had, talked about some other things. There's some site work that quite honestly needs to be done for safety and security. There's some water ponding during the winter ice. People are going to be walking to their cars, 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, and so there's certain things that need to be done in that first phase. So if we wanted to zoom into the green area, so the spaces that would be done in the phase 1 are creating that secure entry vestibule, so anyone that comes to the district office has that security. The receptionist would be relocated. The office spaces to support both human resources and business services would all be created in that phase 1, as well as an IT room that supports all of that. A majority of the people coming to the district office are coming to enroll their student, and that function is still provided off of that main entry in that conference room. The other two pieces of phase 1 include creating the fire separation barrier between the two occupancies that is needed per building code, and the secondary vestibule down on the it's technically east, but on the bottom side of the screen there, because you will be introducing office staff into the elementary building, so having that secure vestibule on both sides. So the area in orange will be remaining as is, essentially. So right now that area has some large classroom spaces that are currently used as storage. There's 2 restrooms in that space that would stay functional in the meantime, and there's an existing professional development room that largely would remain untouched until the second phase, and supporting kitchenette. So that professional development room would continue to be used by the district as that function. So everything in green would be completed in phase 1. The district is planning on working with their capital improvement fund, to be able to afford phase 2. If we go to the second page and zoom in on that orange area. So again, like the plan was always intended, the second, we're still on the first page there, sorry. The second phase would include the additional offices for curriculum learning and analytics department, the pupil services department, and then the superintendent's office. And it would increase that professional development room slightly in size. Did I hit the highlights? Anything I missed? Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So the orange area, but on the first page, I guess I just want to make sure it's clear. So there's you said 3 existing classrooms, and so some of the district office staff will have like cubicles or things that are put in. So we'll be using that space. It just won't be all spruced up.
Correct. So those spaces will remain untouched, but we will use them. We did walk curriculum and learning through there. in student services. There's actually plenty of room, quite a bit of storage, and there's ample additional storage in the basement of Ben Franklin that is currently, unutilized. And of course, everything that I'm mentioning right now, I've been talking with the principal, Mr. Goffard. He's been right there. He was right there when we looked at these adjustments.
It's certainly currently functional space, but a long-term solution for someone to have their office in that space for 20 years. You would certainly want to do those improvements, introduce the daylight, and have the acoustical privacy and other things that they need in that second phase.
No, I just wanted to, you guys said that the green part was for finance and HR. I just wanted everybody to know that like the other functions that are at the district office do have a home. They're not like working from home or something like that. They're, Mr. Munoz will be in the orange area.
Yeah, probably that last one. I'll be the last one to settle, but it's really not about that. There is plenty of room. There is plenty of room. So the district office staff will be in the BF building.
I did have a question on the phase one. The fire alarm updates for the whole building is still in phase one. Is that correct?
Yes. So part of phase one, we're going to upgrade the fire alarm in the entire building, which is approximately this space, in addition to the rest of the building, is approximately $400,000. So that would be part of the phase one work.
So part of the decision point with my recommendation had to do with that $400,000 of whole building improvement. It was important that obviously that had to be done. So $400,000 of whole building improvement of upgrading that fire system is going to happen. And that'll be part of the $2.5 million, not in addition to that.
When is phase two going to begin?
We'll work with the committee, the finance committee, and make sure that that's on the plan. In other words, the capital improvement plan. So we'll just build it in. We'll prioritize phase two in the current capital improvement plan. And certainly there will be things ahead of it. I know there is at least two things in particular that I think we're meeting on later this week, Friday, I think. The drive-ups at Riverside and Valley View certainly will be prioritized ahead of that, improving those drive-ups from a safety and an operational perspective. So that's just an example of what would be ahead of that.
Just want to give you a little context. The project that was originally approved, which included both phase one and phase two, came to the board back in October for the $4 million, $3.9 million, right? So a little history here. Epstein Ewan finished the drawings in November. VGS put it out on the street for competitive bidding. Middle of December, we took numbers, which was inclusive of both phase one and phase two, to see how we were in comparison to the original budget. So the original budget was $3.9 million. After we took bids, we were at $3.5 million. So we were approximately $500,000 under budget, but we were still not at that threshold as we were talking prior to Christmas. So then this is where we're left right here. So the next steps for VJS is, which we talked in committee, is Epstein is going to update the drawings to identify phase one and phase two, and then VJS will put it back out on the street to get updated phase one pricing, and then that is what we're going to basically move forward with. So the steps with that is within this next week or so, Epstein is going to give us the documents. We're going to take the next 3 to 5 weeks updating pricing, and then we're going to proceed right away with that. So that is currently where we're at. That model will, even though we kind of paused right now with this redesign of phase one, phase two, this will still allow us to turn over the space pretty close to where the district needs to be with them being out of the village hall by July 1st, and then them moving in, sometime in the June timeframe. Is there any questions related to that?
Yeah, thank you again for doing all of this, all of you. I was at the finance meeting when you talked about this, but one question that came to mind was, just to clarify, what's in the green is already exists, or will there be construction and wall building and things like that in the green? Correct.
There will be renovation work, so,
Okay.
yeah, so we will be building all the, like there's demolition still needs to happen, and then we'll be building the walls inside the green area, and then putting finishes in there.
Okay, and so that's gonna be anticipated during school hours?
Yeah, yes, correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Any other questions by the board at all? Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for the update. Okay, the next item, we're going to start the administrative guidelines. The first grouping is the 1,000. We have lead into that?
Yep, no, I'm just transitioning my notes here. 1 second. Yeah, these are unchanged from committee. The thousands are unchanged from committee. Are there any questions? There are changes in letter D. I'll reference those changes. But in terms of C, there's no changes from committee.
There are just 3, right?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions? Obviously, you still, we do have these coming up for action, and you would still absolutely have the opportunity to ask questions then. So, but certainly now is a good time to ask questions. Okay. All right. No questions or comments. We'll move on to the 9,000s, which is personnel.
Yes, and there are 2 changes from committee, and these are the only changes. There are no changes in the 5,000s from committee. So 9130.01 and 9130.02, they were slightly changed based on discussion and input with board members, but the actual administrative guidelines and procedures that are now administrative guidelines remain unchanged. All right, the only change is that once the committee makes a decision, the board has involvement. The whole board has involvement. So I didn't think it was I do recommend this change. Leah?
Yeah, in working with some feedback, the board already was a part of the process. We changed the voting to a full board meeting vote at the next regularly scheduled board meeting, so that it would happen more on a natural cycle when people would be expecting a board meeting to happen. So that's the change, is to have the board voting on whether to have their own hearing or to just review the paper that comes to them from the level before them. It will be happening here, not separately in some other meeting.
And since the meeting, we did some research with some other districts that are Neola clients. So we looked at multiple districts that are Neola clients and looked at some of their verbiage. And this is similar to, I believe, Wausau's language.
Wausau and Wango, a few others.
Right.
And just as a reminder, because I feel like I said it last time with the policies, ours is, I know it says it's ours, but it is extremely close to mimicking Neola's, with a few nuances that really don't change as much as I think there's a perception of change. And I have them just in case.
Yeah, correct. So we found out in the drafting process that years ago, before anybody here was in administration, including Leah before that, that there was some actions taken that with policies that were actually Neola policies, even though we weren't a Neola client then. Okay, so Neola was aware of this, and so we had discussed this, I think, in a previous meeting, where actually a policy that we had thought was homegrown is actually 73% Neola template. So, after.
You said 73% Neola template with some nuances that
Yeah.
aren't really all that different.
Yeah, so I mean, one example would be Neola has everything together. So if you are in the public and you want to complain about anything, a staff person, a class, a course, a book, anything, it's the same process. We made the decision to separate that out. And way back, for the people who were at those meetings years ago, we separated them out because we're actually giving more rights to the board for certain things than they had, and we parsed them out accordingly. And so I think it still makes sense for us to not have one big, giant complaint process for everything, and to still have our things separated out, having the appropriate levels of review where they should be. I would say one of the things that I noticed that was the big difference is that Neola at the committee level makes the committee just a recommendation committee to the superintendent. And the superintendent decides to accept the recommendation of the committee or to make his or her own decision based on what they review. That is the difference. The full board is still the final decision maker in Neola's process and in ours. However, we have parsed out the committee being a standalone decision maker and the superintendent being an additional appeal step inside of there.
So those are the changes, which I believe are good ones.
I just wanted to say that, and I should just express my appreciation for you guys making those changes. Obviously, I spoke for maybe longer than put on a biblical brand, maybe 6 months ago on those two. And I know that the intention at that time is to keep them the same. So obviously, community members spoke about them. And obviously, I think there's, myself included, have concerns about, things that happened with those procedures in the past. But I do want to acknowledge that I think, for the fellow board members too that have said that, we should let them as is and unchanged. I really think this is a good change. It's taking the community feedback and also, making it more like the Neola templates that obviously we're paying for. So again, I appreciate you guys working with me, taking the feedback. And I think, I was thinking more on it too of, when we just had, I think, Sarah, you guys had a new textbook come through not that long ago in a new class. The full board has to approve that. So I think also it kind of makes a lot of sense that if you're adding the textbook, the full board is going to approve it. And now if you're taking away some form of media, that we do the same thing. So I just want to acknowledge and appreciate, taking the feedback given, by me and other board members and the communities. I think that's an important thing to, I think, acknowledge.
Thank you.
I want to add that similar sentiment as well, that I think moving to a full board vote and decision really moves the direction into a more, democratic governance. So I appreciate that it doesn't just stay in the committee decision. One thing I just wanted to clarify was, so this recommendation or vote comes from the committee, and then you just said it will go to the next following school board meeting?
Well, so these are really appeal steps.
Yeah, okay.
So the first step is with the principal and the staff person who gets their classroom material, or the librarian, because it's in the library. If the challenging, is that what I'm calling them? The challenging party, meets with the principal and the teacher, and they're satisfied with the decision of those two people, then it stops.
Okay.
If they're not happy, then they appeal to the committee. Then if if they're happy with the committee's decision, I'm not sure if a principal and a teacher would appeal. Like, I'm not sure if the principal would appeal the decision of the committee, but technically you need someone at the committee level who is a party to it to appeal it, to then get to the superintendent, and then finally another appeal to get to the full board. If at any point in time somebody just accepts the decision, or if everybody who is a party to it accepts it, it stops. Did I make sense? So this is an appeals process. And so it doesn't just go from 1 to 4 every time. It will stop as soon as someone's done saying, I'm not happy with the decision of that group of people. It's kind of like the grievance procedure if you're an employee. If you meet with your supervisor and you resolve it, it doesn't come to HR. If you're not happy with your supervisor, then it comes to me. If you're happy with me, yay, then it stops with me. If you still don't like me, then you get to go to, the superintendent. And then if you're not happy with us, you actually go to an independent hearing officer, and then you go to the board at the very end. You might never get to the board because somewhere along the line you've accepted some other appeal group's response.
It's really outstanding having an HR director that's also a lawyer.
So I feel like it was still ineloquent, but I'm trying.
So level 1 is just through principal or staff member?
Yes.
Okay, they appeal it. It goes to level 2.
The
level
committee.
2, yes, is the committee, but within level 2, there's language about it also goes to a vote by the board.
It goes to, so that's in the,
This is 9130.01 that I'm referencing.
so in the AGs, that is with, that is the new process for supplemental materials. Yes. Library is still all the steps.
Yes.
In the supplemental, the committee is bringing forward its recommendation to the board. And then that stops there, then that's the end.
And I just want to kind of jump in here real quick and just say, this is part of why these are separate.
Yeah.
I remember my very first year on the board, having a meeting, it was actually in the high school library, on these, and like everybody talking got so confused because it was like, people couldn't keep track of whether we were talking about library materials or something, and then the next person would talk about supplemental materials, and again, because everything was all part of this huge document, it got very, very confusing, and I want to say that's part of why it got split up, is because you could really focus on just one process at a time. This is, if you're talking about supplemental material, you're talking about this policy. We're all going to look at it, we're all going to read it. We're not going to read an entire policy that includes 3 other processes in it. So again, that's what, maybe other districts like a really, really long policy and everything is in one place, but for us, we decided that separating these things and focusing people's attention on one thing at a time.
And oddly enough, everybody seemed happy at the time. It was one of the few areas where I had full happiness. But in the change to the supplemental materials, the committee is providing a recommendation to the board at the next full board meeting. And as we had parsed all that stuff out a few years ago, supplemental materials are considered curriculum, and the board has full discretion over curriculum. The reason we have more steps and processes and leave decision-making to a committee of a multitude of different people for library books is because at the end of the day, the board has discretion over that, but less discretion than they do over curriculum.
Got it. So then, is there a way, or I noticed this is through the consent agenda, is there a way to make that just a formal action item versus in the consent agenda?
So we put it in consent agenda, and then if any board member wants to pull it, they will pull it, and then it will be open as a regular item for full discussion. You could just have
If
an,
nobody pulls it, it will not be
Yes.
discussed.
it could be that nobody's interested in pulling it. So we're also trying to have this be efficient. So I will tell you that if you are the person in the community or the parent or the student who is going through this challenge process, I will tell you that this just made it longer. Your decisions are not coming as quick. And so there was debate in this process about consent agenda, and it just feels that that's the place to put it originally, because it might be an easy decision for the board that they don't feel they want more discussion on, because they've already received a lot of information from the committee.
Yeah, we felt it was the best place to put it, that every board member individually has the right now, can do this, can pull things out of the consent agenda.
Yeah.
So that's Robert's rules, and
Just
of course,
one person.
one person.
Yes.
One person can remove it.
Any one board
It's not a
member.
vote, it's not anything, it's just.
Yeah.
And I suggest, actually, that was.
Yes.
I
wasn't throwing you out there.
That's okay, so I thought that was, I thought the consent agenda was appropriate, and I think also it also gives, if someone in the community wants to speak to that, they will be able to speak to it, before you would get to the consent agenda. Obviously, you would typically pull it out earlier, but there would be an ability to speak to the action on whatever media it is before a vote was taken. So I thought that was.
Yeah, it would stay in action, so it would be.
It would be after public comment.
Yes.
I completely understand, and I'm coming from a perspective of working in a school where things have been put in a consent agenda to purposely not make it public. So I'm coming from that background of like sneaky activity. So I just come from that background of I've seen things be slid and voted on very, just through a consent agenda, right? You don't have to talk about it. And so I was just coming from the space of, you could guarantee a discussion by not putting on a consent agenda, and that also helps with, because this would be an individual family challenging a material that affects all people in the school district, it would just be one more step to make it more accessible, to have a public conversation at the full board.
Yeah,
That's all that I'm saying.
Yeah, I know the board is aware of this fact. This is more for the community. The consent agenda is public. So the consent, that is already public. That's not a.
Yeah, I don't know what this one looks like, but I mean, technically it would be a standalone item inside the consent agenda.
Okay.
And just to point out again, all committee members or all board members can go to any committee meeting, so that if you see an agenda come up and there's something coming that you want to raise public voice or perspective on, joining and participating at the committee level is strongly encouraged.
And the people who were involved are getting noticed before the meeting, that's where their challenge is. So.
I understand your perspective.
I don't even know if I have a perspective. It just sounded reasonable to me. And any individual board member can move something from consent out into a standalone discussion and action item. Like I said before, I'm not trying to hide this from anybody. I'm honestly the HR director, and I'm just trying to help make a process that feels efficient and doesn't delay it anymore. Because I do know we only have one board meeting a month, so you might be waiting a month until your item comes through. And I guess I just defer a lot of respect and professionalism to the board that you will read all that stuff that we hand you after a committee meeting, and if you feel strongly, you should be, pulling it from the consent agenda to make sure there's more discussion and more time given to it.
Thank you. Any other questions on 9,000?
Yes, related to 9130.02 challenges to library media materials. Just more of a comment I just wanted to say. That I acknowledge that past book removals have affected trust and morale and created challenges within the culture of our schools and community. I understand as a board member the importance of policies and procedures, now administrative guidelines, in public schools, and I also recognize how one person's reconsideration can impact all students. I just want to reiterate that these materials were selected that come into schools by professionals using their expertise, and families already have an opt-out option. So district-wide removal affects every student, so it's critical that we approach this thoughtfully, especially given the community conflict it had caused. So moving forward, just with this administrative guideline, I wanted to say it's essential that we follow this administrative guideline with fidelity and ensure that instructional decisions remain guided by professional expertise while acknowledging all community input.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Just back from 2 years ago, we actually haven't had anything go through this challenge process for library materials. We've had one thing go through the supplemental material process. And then, I mean, I'm just gonna say this neutrally. Usually a policy or procedure will tell you who it's talking to, and I know this created a lot of the conflict the last time. If the board or the superintendent decide to remove something, they don't go through this. So the board can make a decision as the board, the superintendent can make a decision as the superintendent, and quite honestly, we give a lot of control to the librarians at the front end of what comes in or doesn't come in. This applies to the people named. It doesn't apply to the board or the superintendent. And I'm not taking sides here. It's just that I know it caused a lot of conflict. And I just want these policies and procedures to not carry the baggage of things that actually weren't happening inside of them. This library challenge process is not what caused conflict. Whatever you think of that conflict on either side. This stuff actually wasn't a part of it. It was separate. And then on the supplemental material one, people can disagree. Well, I'm gonna not work here anymore. People can disagree with me, but we have to look from my lens. Is there a problem with the policy and the procedure? Or did we just not agree with the outcome? Yet the outcome could have gone either way, depending on who made up these appeal level processes. So that's just always my reminder to folks, do we actually have a systemic issue inside the policy and the procedure? Or are we actually talking about outcomes that could have gone either way equally? And it's really just the makeup of the people who sit on the committees or the board or the whatever inside the process. And in 4 years, it could be a different outcome, and then in another 5, it could be different again. But the process itself isn't inherently leading to any one outcome of keep or remove. That's my opinion. I'm speaking for myself as someone who has to write these things. So.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments on the 9,000? Thank you. We have the 5,000, it's in facilities. I'm guessing we probably won't have much stuff in there.
Yeah, there are no changes from committee in the 5,000.
But certainly want to make sure that everyone gets their opportunity to speak if they need to be on facilities. Okay. All right. So that's the end of the guidelines. Okay, we're on item F for for those following along, which is open enrollment seats for the 26-27 and preliminary enrollment projections.
All right, hello again. We are looking at available seats for open enrollment. These are non-resident students who would attend school in the falls. So some background on the Wisconsin program for open enrollment. The open enrollment program allows parents to apply for their children to attend a school district other than their resident school district. Any student grades kindergarten through 12th grade may apply to any public school in the state. The state requires a board each January to approve open enrollment seats. So it's standard practice that we bring this forward in January. We typically bring it forward for discussion one meeting and action in the next, and we only have one board meeting in January right now, so we are bringing it forward for both discussion and action tonight. So early on we use for preliminary enrollment projections, a methodology where we simply roll forward the current grade to the next grade, and then we do additional projections for 4K, 5K, 6th grade, and 9th grade, as those are the grades that generally fluctuate a little bit more than just the straight roll up from one year to the next. And then we use a similar structure as well for staffing projections for the next fiscal year as well. And then districts have the ability to come back in the summertime, and if there's a desire to approve additional seats in the summer, which is what we did this past year for the 25-26 year, we approved seats in June, and that was 5 at the 9th grade level and 5 at the 10th grade level for a total of 10 seats for 25-26. So in this year, we are learning from sort of experience and a lot of discussions, really healthy discussions about our open enrollment program with our high school team and administrators over there about what this program looks like and how we can provide students the greatest opportunity to be successful in our schools. So we'll take a look next at the document that has a lot of numbers and different sections on there. So that is our early enrollment projections for 26-27. And what we are seeing the capacity for is open enrollment seats at the 9th grade level. Our existing 8th grade class is much smaller than the existing 9th grade class, so we have capacity at the 9th grade level to open seats. The document that you're looking in front of you and is also on board docs is separated by each grade, so each grade level has its own little piece of that. And we break down the students who are within that grade level based on essentially their residency. So we have residents, we have tuition waivers, we have open enrollment, and then we have the new open enrollment seat. So you'll notice at the 9th grade level, the recommendation for open enrollment seats for 26-27 is 21 seats at the 9th grade level. As you go through the grades, you'll see in yellow, those are the average class sizes for each grade level within each school as well. And we work to keep our class sizes within our board approved optimal ranges. So because that 8th grade class is so much smaller, we have room to keep the 9th grade class and be efficient with our staffing and add those seats at the 9th grade level. I'm going to move into two other supporting documents that kind of help tell the big picture of open enrollment as well. So the next is that one. Thank you. So this is our history of high school enrollment. So we've been dropping over the last few years, and next year we're looking at a reduction of, or not a reduction, but a drop of 34 more students. So that's 108 students from 23-24 to 26-27 at the high school level. And you can see as you look from each grade level, the 9th grade class is really small compared to the other grade levels at the high school projected for next year.
So just some high-level 30,000-foot comparisons. About 75% of all the districts in the entire state are in this sort of pattern, meaning declining enrollment.
And the line graph below it shows, so that's the 25-26 current fiscal year, current school year is about halfway in the middle of that graph. So the whole right side is projection. So you're seeing this line graph is without additional open enrollment seats, that we are seeing still a decline in the high school total student body count. And our goal with open enrollment seats is to be efficient. So when we're seeing that drop, it has a result that we are able to add seats without adding staff members. We're just working to be efficient within our staffing ranges that we currently have. And the last attachment here on board docs is our open enrollment history and projections. So in 25-26, So let me start by saying, what are the breakdowns of these two graphs? The first graph you're seeing is our open enrollment history between ins and outs. So the teal color is our ins, our open enrollment in students. So those are students who live elsewhere and they attend the falls. And then the orange is our open enrollment pupils out. So those are students who live in the falls and they attend public school elsewhere. And essentially what happens with the open enrollment program is that the dollars follow the students. So if a student open enrolls in, the district receives those dollars, and if a student open enrolls out, the district pays those dollars essentially to the other district. In 26-27, the per pupil amount for open enrollment is approximately $11,000, which goes up each year a little bit. So in the 2015-16 school year, we had approximately over $1.25 million, almost $1.3 million in revenue, because we had that many more ins than outs. And throughout the years, as we haven't opened new seats regularly, like the decade prior, we're seeing those two lines essentially converge. And in the current fiscal year, 25-26, we have more outs than ins. And that results in a net expense of almost $250,000 in the current fiscal year. In 26-27, as we project into next year, we're seeing an expense, meaning more outs than ins, of almost $600,000. So, and I'll kind of reference back to the start of our evening tonight when Mr. Munoz talked about tightening at the state budget, which is decisions that the state is making that is impacting all school districts in the state of Wisconsin. While we have the capacity and we're seeing this graph kind of go in the wrong direction, we have the ability to sort of soften the impact of open enrollment out by adding seats without having to add teachers. So essentially we're just creating an efficient use of our staffing capacity, which is, again, staying within our optimal teacher-pupil ratios that our board approved many years ago. So this is sort of the why and the context behind that. Also, I'll reference the support programs that the high school has for incoming students, both all students due to the student body, but also specifically for students that are open enrollment. We've talked a lot with Mr. Gebauer about the supports that he has to kind of wrap around these students and make sure that they're ultimately successful in our program. Mr. Munoz, did you have something to add?
Yeah, and on that note, we have a process in place that any district does who accepts open enrollment students, that if students become habitually truant in their open enrollment, then you can't take them to truancy court, so they have to go back to their home districts. So that sort of process, there's an ebb and flow of things. I know we discussed this in committee a little bit, but that sort of thing is happening. There's an active, they have to attend. That's really, if that's in state law. And if they don't attend, because we can't do truancy processes because they're from another home district, they just go back to their home district. And we have been, when we started here, that system and process wasn't in place 3 years ago. We have a refined system and process in place through student services to kind of keep that ebb and churn. They have to attend. So that's just an important point of that.
So some of the other pieces in talking with Mr. Gebauer about how they wrap around support for our new students, he mentioned that he's tentatively planning to bring open enrollment parents and students in for an orientation, which would be a new thing, but similar to Spin Night, so to really orientate those new students to our system. And then he really appreciates the idea of just 9th graders because it kind of, there are students who are new to our building anyway. So as opposed to a student being in 9th grade in a different school district and then again having to adjust to a new school, he felt that we could really have the opportunity to make sure those students are successful if they're all joining together at the 9th grade level.
And we already have students coming from private schools, transitioning from 8th grade to 9th grade. That's a regular occurrence already, just for different reasons.
And then the final piece I wanted to mention is that when we initially talked about our open enrollment with our cabinet team and with the high school administration, we started with the open enrollment number of 15 and looked at the existing, so a new 15 seats for 26-27, and looked at our existing 25-26 open enrollment students. And of the 10 seats we opened, we'll have 4 here in second semester. So a number of those is because we started in June, our process. Students, we didn't fill all of our seats because we ultimately butt up against the start of the school year. And we actually, by law, can only take a student up to the third Friday in September. So we only have 4 existing of our 10 that were opened. So we took essentially that 6 remaining, added it to the 15, and that's where we ended up with the 21. So I know that seems like an odd number. That's how we got there.
Any follow-up questions for Ms. Winmark?
I have one tonight. For the graph that's being displayed right now with the blue and the orange, when you get to 26, 27, your forecasting here does not include these 21 seats.
Correct.
It's just like stays
So
the
this-
same and no changes.
Exactly, yeah. So this is just projections without new seats. So that bar graph gets better by about $230,000 if we get 20, if we open up 21 new seats, and if they're filled.
And
Yes.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well that concludes the discussion items, and it brings us to my favorite portion of the evening, which is the invitation for questions and statements from the audience, and we have quite a few this evening. So I am going to just say a few things that, okay, all of the forms, the only speakers are the folks who've already completed a form. So the speakers were required to complete a speaker identification form that was found in the back table. Individuals are permitted to speak if they are a district resident, a district student, a current district employee, or a parent or guardian of a currently enrolled student in the district. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and we'll leave it at that this evening. The amount of time, so we will leave it at 3 minutes. Okay, so the very first speaker, I'm going to call your name, and you can come up to the podium. I think what I'll do, I'll also, just to be efficient, I will maybe say the next person's name so they're on deck and they can get their comments. So our first commenter is Rose Clancy. Rose Clancy, if you could come on up. Our on-deck speaker is hometown favorite, Kathy McBride.
Gosh, I haven't been here for a long time. I mainly just have a couple of questions, and part of it is not being totally familiar with the Neola policy structure and all that. I found the discussion interesting and I hope helpful, and I really appreciated Leah's remarks at the end, because I think those were very reflective of where things are at. And it also is another means of saying the better we work together, the more success we're going to have on anything rather than push-pull stuff. A couple of quick questions. One is, and this may not be the purview of your board, but as a taxpayer, and I just paid my taxes and got how much of our tax money is going for, in the school portion of that, is going to private schools versus public schools? And how does that affect, our budget here? That's just a question, and maybe for future consideration. When we talk about the open enrollment things, I just cringe, because I hear money and we get this many students, and I know I've worked in schools forever, I know the game, but it makes me cringe that we have to think about in terms of, well, these students are worth this amount of money, so then we can take this number. So I'm just asking to be, and I'm not saying you're not, I'm asking you to be considerate of that aspect of it, and I like the idea of the district offering support programs for those students who come into the district, because I don't think that there's enough appreciation of what that involves, and I've heard some not good examples of students who have come to this district and chosen not to stay. And I find that very sad. I also feel it's irritating to me, frankly, that if a student is, I get it, if they're truant. My job was truancy when I worked in the schools. So if a student is truant, yes, you don't want to keep them. It's a whole lot of work to try and keep that student here. But if you make that commitment to that student when they come to our district and we take the money that we get from them, we darn well better be able to support everything we can to support that student and not have to make them go back to their other district.
Thank you. All right, Kathy, Brian, please. And then the on-deck speaker is Emily Count Schlien.
Okay, full confession, I'm totally confused. I'm encouraged because after listening to the discussion tonight with the board members and Leah, it just verifies for me how important for our upcoming election that we get to know who the board members are. And that refers back to what I spoke the last time. If there's 3 vacancies and 6 candidates, and I know you're here, candidates, most of you, please, how can we work together? And this is not what I came here to talk about. Believe me. How can we work together to get some sort of a public forum, call it what you want, town hall meeting, something, so that the 6 candidates have a chance, 6 of them, not just 3. 6 candidates have a chance to share their thoughts, their ideas, and their priorities and plans. That's essential so that, because this is confusing stuff. I've taken on a lot of stuff, and I admire anybody that's going to do that. But please, my goal, our, I don't know who our yet, but the goal of advocates, the goal of engaged citizens for this 2026 election is to plan a successful forum with all 6 candidates willing to attend. It boils down to questions. Help us get the right questions there. That's how people backed out last time. Questions weren't good. We got to work together. Please find meaningful compromise, collaboration, and solutions for our students who want to, for our students. Act and advocate together, all of us, for a fair process and policies which reflect shared values and understanding. That's what I wanted to say in the beginning, is that tonight's comments, whether from you, the board, or your constituents, or staff people, come from many different ideas. Today it continues. We are a diverse community. We should be proud of it, but we should tap into how that can make this the best schools for our students. Thank you. Where's the timer? I'm sure.
It's right here. You had 17 seconds left.
I'll take a question.
Thank you, Kathy. Emily, you're next, and on deck we have Julie Petzel.
Okay, so I'm Emily Canch-Slimmy. I am a parent. I came here concerned about the policies. I do want to give kudos to Leah. She really broke it down and explained it for everyone. Being an HR professional, I know policies are difficult to navigate. I'm happy to hear that 73% of those policies are grounded in Neola. I know you guys can't answer questions, but I'm curious, if we only have 73%, do we still have those same protections that if we ground in the full Neola template? But once again, just want to really appreciate the due diligence, not only of the HR director, but the whole committee, to really thinking about how to critically have a good policy that can be supportive for our community. One thing I do hope that as a board, things to consider a little bit more as I was looking at the policies. Both policies indicate that decisions are made for 5 years, but it's unclear how a parent could request reinstatement of the material they believe might be educationally appropriate for their own children. And neither reconsideration form provides a way for a parent or resident to do anything than restrict or remove material. I did try to click on a link in the board documents and it went to nowhere, so hopefully there's a form that might exist in the future that doesn't currently exist. As it's been said, past removals in our district have been highly contentious, and so with removals of materials, it's really important that we have that clear and transparent process. And I know at least 4 books that have been removed, not necessarily through this policy, but others are frequently studied on AP courses, and there's no clear or viable path for reinstatement. So this raises concerns whether our students have equitable access to the educational materials that they need for their coursework. I also hope that, when we have these decisions, we have that adequate public input and an encouragement on those reconsideration forms to have more sufficient emphasis on prioritizing those opt-out options. I didn't see anything on those forms as to why a parent might say those current opt-out options are insufficient or why they believe the material should be removed for all students rather than just their current student. We have really great educational professionals, so I know it's really serious when we are removing supplemental materials or library materials that our professionals have put into place that they believe are really appropriate for our students. And to really go off what some others have said, I do really hope that this board and future boards can continue to better work together. We're better when we can work together, collaborate, bring all voices. I know time's up, but collaboration is great.
With President Grant's permission, I can answer the 73% piece that was brought up.
May.
The 73%, I was referencing one policy, not all of them as an aggregate. 73% was referencing 2522. So policy 2522, it was 73% of that particular policy, which was previously thought to be 0%, is actually mostly a Neola template. When we are done with this entire process, it's my belief, and I'll make sure that we have the facts from Neola. I do have Dr. Thompson coming to our final meeting in a few months here. That will be definitely over 90%, but closer to 95% of Neola-based template. So the 73% comment was about 2522 library media centers, just to clarify.
So not about 9130.01?
Yeah, 73%. It was a reference to 2522, which I've done in a previous meeting, which is library media centers. Previously, 2522 was thought to be completely homegrown. So I was specifically referencing 2522. No, that was what I was referring to. Overall, all of these new Neola policies and AGs, I expect us to be vast majority, well over 90%, probably closer to 95% template. For that particular one, we found it interesting that it was actually a Neola policy that before me, before any board member here, somebody in administration and on the board back then used a Neola policy apparently and used it as the base to write some old policies that have different numbering, 871 and 872 in our current book. So I just want to be clear about that.
Thank you very much. All right, Ms. Petzel, and then it looks like Margie Lowe.
Hi, I am a veteran teacher of 28 years here in the school district of Menominee Falls. I am a resident and a proud parent of 2 students who went through this district. As an employee of this district, we thought it was a good idea to think of what do we do at the beginning of the year. I write resolutions. I wrote some for myself. I had my students write resolutions. So our staff wrote some resolutions for the board, and I'd like to share some with you. And when I leave, I plan to give you each a pile of some resolutions that we wrote for you. So here we go. Salary schedule, listen to teachers' concern, equity in pay. Salary schedule, more respect from district staff, a clearly articulated vision from district leadership. Salary above CPI, salary schedule. To have a predictable salary schedule so I can plan my future. To have paid days, to have paid out sick days. To have an honest, fair sick bank for me to use. Salary schedule, cost of living increase and salary advancement. Manageable workload. Please, a salary schedule. Capping sick days is unfair to those who don't use them. We feel less cared about than we should. Please fix this. We are educated professionals who deserve better. Salary schedule, transparency, equity of workloads. Salary schedule, stop banning books. Predicted salary schedule, pay for extra duties. Sick day payout at retirement. A clear salary schedule, paid out sick days for unused at retirement. Personal days are personal. More than 2 days after so many years in this district just seems unfair. Raises just above CPI. I'd like a salary schedule. Increase insurance perks, points for tracking healthy habits. Salary schedule. Lead teacher pay increase. Personal days and sick days could possibly be paid out to save on subbing costs. Salary schedule advancement. More flexibility with personal days. District office level staff will work on communications and building trust within our schools. Salary schedule, sick day payout, transparent communications. A salary schedule, pay out my sick days please, so I can stay in front of my students and be rewarded for the work I do and when I'm here. Curriculum pay should match my hourly rate. I want to be treated as a professional. I want to have a salary schedule. I want summer curriculum pay to match my hourly. Paid out sick days, salary advancement. Please do not require staff that donate sick days to not be able to use those 10 before they have to use unpaid sick days. Salary schedule, insurance, transparency. I have just read for you one group, and we have many groups from all the staff. So I ask that you maybe look at these resolutions over and look back and maybe moving ahead, take some of our ideas into play and communicate with us and talk to us because we love to be partners with all of you and put some of these things into motion. I don't want to approach, so I'll leave them here. So thank you for your time.
So, good evening. My name's Margie, and I guess I'm not supposed to be here. I lived in Menominee Falls a year and a half before I realized I was not in the Menominee Falls School District. So,
Are you a resident?
I'm not. I'm a resident of Menominee Falls, not the school district. So all I'm going to ask you is,
So I'm sorry, the rules.
change your sign. Because at the door it says Village of Menominee Falls residents may speak.
Well,
Before
the speaking started, I did read
I understand.
criteria, and it is you have to be a school district of Menominee Falls.
I don't agree, but I understand.
Thank you. All right, we have Emma Fumes and then Ross Workman.
My name is Emma Coons, and I'm also a teacher in the district. I teach 3rd grade at Riverside. I'm also a proud parent of a high schooler and a middle schooler, and I live here in the district also. I'm going to continue, Julie, with what Julie started and read some more of these resolutions for you tonight. Salary schedule, improved staff wellness, transparent communication from district and building leadership. To have a salary schedule, to be respected as professionals, to have sick days paid out, to be treated as a respected educator, for a clear salary schedule, for open, honest communication between the school board, district office, and teachers. Fix all compression issues, salary schedule, transparency behind salary decisions. Predictable salary schedule, pay for duties, Hourly pay for curriculum work, not curriculum pay, and pay for unused sick days. Salary schedule, teacher workload, district climate. Salary schedule, teacher workload, district climate. Fixed compression issues for all staff. Salary schedule for staff. Curriculum committee should be more diverse and include someone with education experience. Salary schedule, salary that compares to surrounding districts. Insurance rates that do not increase. Sick bank access. Sick days payout. Salary schedule, more full-time assistants. Salary schedule, sick day payout, support staff needs. Salary schedule, transparently fixed salary compression. Salary schedule advancement, not just CPI. EAs need a pay increase and benefits. Fixed compression. Salary schedule should be transparent. Lower out-of-pocket benefit expenses. Personal days should roll over from year to year. Bank all unused sick days. Pay out all at retirement. Salary schedule, including pay more for, can't read that one. Non-monetary benefits. Improve retention rate by doing all of these things. Less district office staff. Salary schedule advancement. Distribution, use of sick days. Curriculum materials versus teacher-created curriculum. Salary schedule, higher athletic coaches pay. A look at the structure of CNL Division of School District. Payout of unused PTO and or sick days. Clear pay schedule or clear pay scale. Paid coverage when you lose prep time. Thank you for your time.
Till the end, thank you. Mr. Workman and then Kylie Hibbs.
Hi, my name is Ross Workman. I've lived in Menominee Falls for almost 40 years, and my two daughters did attend school here from first grade through high school. They certainly got an excellent education, and as a parent and involved community citizen, I certainly want to support anything to promote and continue that level of excellence. I'm also a board member of the Menominee Falls Friends of the Library. Last year I participated in a statewide meeting in Madison of library leaders and board members. When I shared with the people at my table which community I was from, no one knew where Menominee Falls was until one of the ladies said, "Oh, that's the place where they banned all those books." And I glumly said, "Yeah, that was us." So I think that, as people have said tonight, I think we need to move beyond that divisive part of our history and base our future decisions on professional standards and with professional input. It sounds as though from the dialogue tonight that some of that or much of that maybe has been addressed, so I commend those people who have worked towards providing that additional transparency and neutrality, and also in order to repair some of the community dissension that was caused a couple years ago by that effort. So going forward, I urge you again to follow the Neola standards that the school system has invested in and trust the expertise of the teachers and librarians that we have in this school district. Thanks.
We will suspend public comment if you can adhere to the rules. Thank you. Ms. Hibbs, and then we have Jason Primus.
Hi, I'm Kylie Hibbs. I teach 7th and 8th grade science at North Middle School. I'm going to continue reading the resolutions that we have for the board. Clear salary schedule, paid out sick days unused at retirement, fix the salary gap for everyone. Salary schedule, non-monetary benefits like work from home. Top heavy at district office and admin level. Look at the number of curriculum admin coaches. Salary schedule, clear and transparent. Top heavy at district office level, curriculum admin coaches. Non-monetary benefits like work from home days, consecutive personal days, payout sick days at retirement. Salary schedule. Districts should value staff expertise over parental wishes. Improved sub-situation. Salary schedule. Teacher workload. District use of funds. Salary schedule. No book ban. Salary. Salary schedule. Salary advancement. Sick day payout. Salary schedule. Class sizes. Salary adjustments. Newer teachers making more than me. Salary schedule needed. Class sizes too big. Losing too many good people. Create a salary schedule. Workload of regular education teachers. Salary advancements. Salary schedule. Salary schedule. Salary. Salary schedule. Sick day payout. Sick bank should kick in immediately, no 2-week unpaid gap in between. To have a salary schedule, to have a predictable income going forward. To bring back more EA time in lower elementary. To bring back slightly smaller class sizes by adding another section, 6 per section for lower elementary desired. Behavior and students have grown tremendously over the last 6 to 8 years. It is very difficult to be an effective teacher with larger class sizes, 23, 24, 25 plus in 5K through 2. To be able to see a salary schedule, paid out sick time, salary advancement opportunities, increase board communication with teachers, establish a salary schedule, increase opportunities for teacher feedback, salary schedule, payout for sick days, transparency, raises above CPI index, paid duties coverage for lost preps, days off instead of personal/sick, salary schedule, teacher representation on calendar committee, keep Wednesday before Thanksgiving as a holiday to look at elementary conference dates, 3 sick days and personal days, lump sum to use as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jason, please, and then Becky, your line.
Don't push the microphone. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. I'm a community member with kids in the district. You may also find me familiar as I was a previous runner-up school board candidate. I'm here tonight to express concern with replacing Neola policies with custom policies as relating to supplemental materials. I was listening to the conversation. I acknowledge I'm still not an expert on it, won't claim to be. I find a lot of the subjecting opinions into it to be more confusing as a community member than it is helpful. One question though is why continue to invest in Neola if we're not going to use it? I trust our teachers know their students in their classrooms and that librarians know their materials. What I do know also is the previous boards drafted custom policy which led to book bans. It prompted a book that was of supplemental to be banned based on one community member feedback, which has prompted a lawsuit. The majority of the community at that policy meeting, I was there, did not agree with the decision that was made. And it's not very clear how I could try to reintroduce material like this that's been banned back in. Or how can we work with teachers who may have had one student really against it? Well, could they teach it the next go round? I don't know what that policy is. I don't know if that policy exists. I don't know who could point me to it to really make that clear. I'm concerned that by continuing to create our own policy on top of Neola's, what it's going to lead to is more trimming of books without community feedback, or books being, to not understand why, or to even define what trimming is and what books would be subject to be trimmed. And again, could they come back? Could we grow them back in? I personally would like all of our students to be well-rounded, to read all sorts of viewpoints and perspectives on the nation's history, to read current events, all sorts of perspectives, not just one, not just what any given board may feel like, hey, this is the way we want to go on this decision. And as we heard before 2 years later have another decision, and then another 2 years later something else. I'm asking that the board reconsider the custom policy, align with Neola best practice. I truly don't think it should be okay that any one individual in a community can effectively ban any of this content for everybody else. I'm looking forward to the upcoming election season to be able to support forward-looking, fresh candidates. Ideally, there will be a community forum. I think that's a wonderful idea that we heard earlier, so that we can get to know the candidates, especially to see if any candidates have any type of baggage or background that we wouldn't want. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And Becky Durline, and then our last person is Sophie. I put my glasses on. Sophie Sophie. So 2 more speakers.
Hey, hi. Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Becky Durline. I'm a resident of Menominee Falls since 2017, and I have a daughter who attends Shady Lane Elementary. I'm also a teacher in a neighboring school district, and currently am a candidate for a school board in Okay, I won't say. I did not know that. Okay. I do just want to acknowledge that I have spoken before on Neola policies, and I know lots of people tonight came here to speak on that. And I want to establish, I think, that we still have some work to do in order to make our district a fair and equitable place for all students to learn when it comes to these policies and rectify any harm that has come from policy decisions in the past. However, I would like to use my time tonight to speak more directly to the opening up of the 21 open enrollment seats. So as many people know, Dr. Munoz did a great job of explaining all of the budget shortfalls coming from the state, which were unforeseen. As he had mentioned, it was about a $1.5 million less than what was anticipated. So the district very skillfully moved around some funds and scaled back projects to fix this budget shortfall for this current year. But I think as a district, we do need to explore other options for long-term financial stability. And the 21 open enrollment seats can help us boost that those financials that would last in a more long-term way. I also ask that the board communicate to the public with full transparency about these budget shortfalls and what they would mean for our future in the district. I know these budget shortfalls are something that have been fairly recent, and we are still working through them, but many questions have come from them. So I know other districts throughout our state are cutting student-focused programs to make up for these budget shortfalls. So to be transparent with community members about what our plans are. And we have had those 3 to 4 year budget projections, and I know that since those have come out, these budget shortfalls have now been announced. And so as we continue to rework all those budgets to be transparent with the community about what that means. So as a taxpayer and a parent, I want to make sure that our district is fully funded, student-centered programs are being fully funded, while being responsible stewards of those taxpayer dollars. And that these open enrollment seats are a way that I think that we can do that. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. And Sophie.
Good evening. I'm here tonight wearing a few hats, a community member, educator, and as someone who hopes to be a parent in this district in the future. Because of that, I care deeply about both the long-term stability of the district and the day-to-day experience of the students who are already here. I want to talk about open enrollment and why it matters not just financially, but educationally and communally. At recent finance meetings, it was discussed that each open enrollment student would bring in roughly $9,000 per year in funding. We learned tonight that it's actually $11,000 now. That funding doesn't exist in the abstract. It supports real things like class offerings, electives, extracurriculars, support staff, and manageable class sizes for the students currently enrolled in this district. As an educator, I understand that stable enrollment allows schools to plan responsibly while maintaining programs that benefit all students. When enrollment declines, students feel it first through fewer opportunities and fewer resources. When enrollment is stable or growing, schools are healthier places to learn. Open enrollment students also contribute to classrooms, teams, and clubs in ways that strengthen the overall school environment. Families who choose to enroll in our schools are doing so because they value the district's academic structure and expectations. Open enrollment works best when standards are clear and consistently upheld, and when families are opting into those standards, not redefining them. Over the past few years, inconsistent policy decisions have created uncertainty for some families, both inside and outside this district, as well as for educators. That uncertainty makes it harder for families to trust the system and for schools to plan effectively. The district's investment in professional policy guidance was intended to bring clarity and consistency, and that consistency is essential for rebuilding trust, both within the community and with families considering open enrollment. As a future parent, I want to choose a district that is stable, well-governed, and transparent, one that follows its own policies and respects professional expertise. That requires more than adopting policies. It requires committing to follow them consistently, even when doing so is inconvenient or politically difficult. When policy decisions are made thoughtfully and consistently, open enrollment becomes a positive cycle. Trust leads to enrollment, enrollment supports programs, and those programs benefit the students who are already here.
Thank you, and that will conclude the public comment section, and I do appreciate everybody's thoughtful comments. All right, we'll move into the action items. So the first action item is the district office relocation, and so I'm going to ask for a motion for a motion.
Yeah, motion to approve the phase district location project as presented, not to exceed $2.5 million in phase one.
Great. Is there any discussion or comment? Second by board member Wren. Discussion or comment?
I just want to say I commend Mr. Munoz for making this important recommendation to reduce the project by $1.5 million. Thank you.
All right, no further comment, or did you comment, Mr. Williams?
I just said you're welcome, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right, I see no further comments or discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, item B, under action items. I'm going to need a motion to approve the first read preliminary approval of the NEO 1000 administrative guidelines as presented.
I'll motion.
Motion by board member Holzman. Second. By board member Langer. Comments or discussion? And these are administrative area. 1000. Okay, hearing no further comments or questions. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That also passes unanimously. I need a motion to approve the first read preliminary approval of the Neola 9000 administrative guidelines as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by board member Langer.
I'll second.
Second by board member Kramer. Comments or discussion?
I see movement in a meaningful direction, but my vote tonight will formally note ongoing concerns, both my own and from what I heard tonight from the community, about putting things in a consent agenda, broader community input, and a clear reconsideration process. There were still questions that I don't know the answer to. But I have the hope that AGs 9130.01 and 9130.02 continue to be refined.
Okay. Further, anyone else? Comments, questions? All right. Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, that passes 6-1. All right. Moving on to the Neola Administrative Guideline 5000. I'm going to need a motion to approve the first read preliminary approval of Neola 5000 Administrative Guidelines as presented.
Make the motion.
Motion by board member Langer.
Second.
By board member Holzman. Comments? Discussion?
Just to clarify, these are students' administrative guidelines, right? The overarching series?
Yes.
Okay, I thought I heard financial before.
So in the 5,000s, there was a lot of involvement from multiple people, but it's primarily students.
Okay.
Right, Mr. Ellis?
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That I would need a motion to approve the open enrollment seats for the 26-27 school year as presented.
I'll motion.
Motion by Board Member Lockwood,
I'll second.
seconded by Board Member Kramer. Comments or discussion?
I did want to make a couple comments here as I was listening to the speakers this evening. I know that we are facing some budget shortfalls. I've also heard comments about class sizes, prep work, wanting compensation for time spent on curriculum, as well as comments on issues with student behavior. I know as we look at open enrollment in the past, we've made some adjustments on how we are looking at attendance, behavior issues. My concerns still lie on the side of really wanting to advocate for the school district of Menominee Falls and our students here. And so I will be voting no on that.
And to be clear about attendance, that's, my comments I think might have been misunderstood. And that's unfortunate. The attendance condition for open enrollment students is state law. That's not, it trumps our policy. So state law governs this. There's a procedure, there's a format through the state, which existed before I arrived, it just wasn't utilized. Now we have a system in place that they need to follow state law if they're OE students. I know that's not totally.
It does clarify that.
Okay, to help clarify that part.
What's the percentage that they need to be in school? Do you know off the top of your head? Or
Yeah, I can answer that. So habitually truant is missing all or part of 5 days in a semester. All or part of 5 days in a semester. If we verify that those are actual truancy days, that's habitual truancy. So all or part of 5 in a semester triggers this action. So our students who are not open enrollment students, it would trigger a different process, insurance core and tickets, that whole process over here.
And again, to clarify, truancy is when you don't have an excuse. So if you're going to
Yes.
a doctor's appointment,
That's
if you're going
excuse.
to those are excuses.
Those things are all
It's when
excuses.
you don't have a note from a dentist or a doctor,
Yeah.
or your parent isn't giving a reason, it's
Yeah.
basically you're skipping school.
This is confirmed by our attendance officers, administrators, that they're truant. So, which we've got I think our average daily attendance is still over 95%. See Mr. Halverson shaking his head, which is outstanding. Last year, our average daily attendance was right around 90%. So that was one of our targets. I just want to reiterate. That being said, this is a state law and system that existed before I arrived. It just wasn't, there wasn't a system in place to handle it.
I do have actually one more question for you, Caitlin. So I know that you had mentioned that there was open enrollment seats prior, and we did not fill all of those seats, leading to this number 21.
Yes.
Can you give me a little bit more detail on how, or where those open enrollment seats were open, like for example, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and then why we are advocating to have all of them in that grade 9?
So the seats were open 5 at 9th grade, 5 at 10th grade. So they're all high school. And the idea with the high school, like opening seats at that grade level, there's kind of different trains of thought between that or like our youngest kids. But the idea at the high school level is that generally a student has already, if they're going to be having exceptional needs, they're generally already identified for special ed programming by the time they're at 9th grade. So we know that, and we don't have space for special ed. We are not opening space for special ed. We're opening only regular ed open enrollment seats. And last year was 10 total regular ed open enrollment seats, 5 at 9th, 5 at 10th. And then working with Mr. Gebauer about his recommendations and how we kind of took this year as our first, it's happening now. We're working through our truancy process when it's needed and supporting our students that are new to our schools and how is that working. And he advocated for students at the 9th grade level only because it's helpful that they're all new together. So they're new with their classmates, everybody's new to 9th grade. They can bring in those additional supports. They're doing the multi-level systems of support, the MLSS testing to make sure that they know exactly where a student's going to be needing supports when they come into our school, using Phoenix Time to ensure that they're getting those supports, and then using the data to make sure that they know when a student doesn't need the support anymore. So that's why the high school level versus the other train of thought is, okay, bring students in at the youngest level, the kindergarten level, which is the youngest grade that you can have open enrollment, and have them just be our students the whole time. So they're growing up through our system, but we don't have space at the kindergarten level. And you could run into at any time a student potentially requiring special ed programming, which could still happen at the high school level, but it's less likely.
Yeah, and part of this was a math. The biggest loss that we have in student population year over year is at the high school, meaning a large class going out and a small class coming in. So that drop was also part of our discussion.
Exactly.
That in order to, some of the, I think, points were very good that were brought up by board members or others, that when you have classes, what was the number drop? It was 74.
So the total high school project was, so from 25-26 current year to next year is 34 additional students dropping.
On top of the ones that we already dropped.
Yes, the reduction in total student body.
From the year before. So it was our largest drop in 36. I mean, that's bigger than a class. So that was also part of our discussions.
So actually, thank you for clarifying that these are going to be regular student open enrollment seats and not someone who's been identified.
Correct.
And again, I know that sounds terrible, but I want to advocate for the students in our district. I know the special education budget has just been cut.
Right.
And so we need to be responsible and, aware of that too. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, I want to clearly state that we do not have space for special education students. We'll educate anybody. We just don't have, our caseloads are high enough. You've heard some of the comments. I think some of those are valid. I mean, all that's valid. I mean, any feedback is valid, but specifically about special education caseloads, we do not have room for that. We'll educate anybody. We just don't have room for special education additional students aside from those that are already here in our district, of course. So yes, the vote is indicating regular education spots only.
And just for point of clarification, that's doing the assessment this year. If we were to look in the future and see that we did have capacity in special ed and we were doing open enrollment, we would offer a vote, correct?
That we could, absolutely, yes.
It's just a limited constraint as of today or next year.
It's our understanding at this point with our special education's caseloads in talking to Mr. Just, obviously is tied in with his team, that we don't have any projected space at this time.
So it's not never, it's just not now.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no further comment, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that is unanimous. And that brings us to vouchers payable.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve vouchers payable through January 8th, 2026, in the amount of $1,248,556.82.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that also passes unanimously. And that brings us to consent agenda, which includes the minutes from our last meeting and the Neola policy 1100, where we're just adding an updated org chart. Can't remember, was anybody absent last time? Ms. Olson? Olson, that's great, Ms. Olson, so you're abstaining? Okay, she may abstain. All right. Everyone's had an opportunity to review everything? Any questions or comments? I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Board Member Langer,
I'll second.
second.
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Whopper, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Any future board agenda items?
Yeah, we have a busy week with committee, so policy meeting is Thursday, I think student services is Wednesday.
There's a correction on the agenda as well for the time on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Yep, it's 5:30, not 6.
Morning.
Here, what? So the meeting is at the 15th? No, the 14th, student services, just as a note. Our agenda of upcoming items says it's at 6 p.m., but it is in fact at 5:30 p.m. Student Services Committee, Village Hall, upper level conference room for anyone who wishes to attend.
I highly recommend.
Is there a finance committee meeting?
I
have one on the calendar for the 19th.
I believe that was canceled.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. We had one on Tuesday, and so the 19th is canceled. Nothing is urgent, so we are just holding our February meeting as scheduled.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and that brings us to the end of the agenda, and I would need a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion.
Motion by Board Member Schmalen.
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Wren. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.